I'll have to pee in about 5 minutes.
You're awful, Pete.
I know.
Hello everybody, welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 428. I'm Ozone Ocean and with me is Pitsy. Hi Pit.
Hey Ozzy. Ozzy.
Ozzy.
Uzi.
Tansy. Hi Tans.
Hello, Ozzy.
Ozzy. And hello Bainesy.
Hello.
Baby Baines. Okay, that's what I'm calling you now. Alright. We're going to be talking about the differences between male and female expectations in this QUACKCAST, and we have a thread on Drunk Dark that we can draw from. It was Bane's idea to put this to community and see what they said, and they had a lot to say. So we'll be reading out some of those. What do you reckon, guys? Should we do that, or should we just blather on our own way?
We could do, well, if anyone has anything to say to begin with, then we could say it now, or we could read the things first and then give our own take.
All right. Well, forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, before we get into that, we have to bring up the featured comic. So, QUACKCAST did the featured comic this week, and her feature was Jetpack Jill. So, give us that. Jetpack Jill.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Jetpack Jill by Deuce X Glyphic, and it is rated T for teen. Hurtling through space without a helmet and a jetpack on her back is Jill, the spunky redhead who still needs to do chores. One night, after sharing a room with the son of her friends, Jill is awoken by the foreboding tales of a little boy's nightmare. In order to ease his fears, Jill pulls out her own book and begins reading the tales of Zuri and the restoration of a city from darkness. It turns out that in reality, Jill and her group of renegade friends are really fighting space pirates on a planet filled with dinosaurs. Equipped with an Omu War Totem, an ancient object that is able to transmute emotional brainwave frequency into destructive power, Jill has been trusted with an object with considerable power that could end life as we know it. The art is digitally drawn in full pages of color. The art features really stylistic character designs and rad space costumes. Blast off into deep space and read Jetpack Jill by Deuce X Glyphic, rated T.
And that was QUACKCAST with Jetpack Jill. Okay, after that we have the music theme by Gamolis, and this week he has done the musical theme to Customer Service, which was a comic that Kwai featured just recently, I think. So, Customer Service, this is a slow, steady, cool, dim the lights and slow dance to this groove. Black satin sheets, sophistication, late night, let loose those clothes and let them slip to the floor and get a little skin-to-skin contact with Customer Service. Take it away, Gamolis.
Lift off and the clock has started. The clock has started.
What? That's right. You got it, baby. You know you got it, baby.
Coming through. Check it out, yo.
And that was Gumwallers with Customer Service. It's a full service piece of music. All right. After that, we had...
You could have said it is servicing. All right.
Exactly. After that, we have differences between male and female audiences, expectations, I should say. It's a tricky one. I mean, I thought it sounded logical in my head when I was coming up with the idea, but then I realized that you as a person can't really tell people about the difference between male and female expectations easily because you're only a sample of one. You can only talk about your own expectations, but people have had a go anyway. And we've got a lot of different responses. I should start out with my post, I think, maybe.
Yes, and I think you make a very important distinction in the beginning of what you write, so I definitely think you should read it out.
Well, as I've sort of said, like, what are your expectations between male and female audiences? And I've said it's entirely based on culture. It's not really... It's almost entirely based on culture. This changes between where and when you are from. Like, you know, someone's the female expectations or the male audience expectations from the 1980s are very different from the 1880s, for example. This is not an eternal thing. People in ancient Greece did not expect the same thing that modern audiences do from their entertainment media. Some things are more obvious that are determined by our physiology, you know, sex sells, and gender-based differences are going to be, you know, that's a little bit more eternal. However, I'm absolutely not interested in people's theories of genetic predeterminism or evolutionary psychology. You know, I'm interested in the whats rather than the whys, because that's evolutionary psychology is not a real science, and just it's not. It's been criticized, you know, a lot. And imagining what the reasons are for this and that is really fuzzy, you know. Anyway,
yeah, what you would probably be doing is taking things like general things from that sort of line of thinking, like women nest and males hunt, and take it to try to fit it into some kind of predisposition why women only watch that or men only watch that, and it's totally backwards and it's not right, and people always try to convolute that sort of shit and use it and it's bullshit anyway. So
yeah, it's more
I
likely...
guarantee if a woman was starving in the Neolithic, she would have gone out and hunt. So fuck you.
It's more likely to be based on supporting ideas that you already have, or you've got your culture and your society here, and you're trying to justify it with some kind of, you know, working backwards.
Absolutely.
You're right. It's so
and I would
dodgy.
generally like to say, if you would like to have like a rule of thumb in the whole social stuff thing, is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. If there are situations where women tend to do certain things today, maybe they would have done them in different manners or through different avenues in other eras, but they would still be interested, and you would still have a group at least of women that would be still interested in doing certain things. We aren't different. We're still Homo sapiens sapiens, and they were Homo sapiens sapiens. And
Yeah,
that's the truth of the matter. So, yeah, definitely, she would have gone out to hunt. And if the husband, quote unquote, wasn't a good hunter, she would probably divorce him in some manner, probably with a lock to the head or something. But yeah, there would still be the same trajectory. So
yeah, and it's hard to divorce things from our present culture when we sort of look back in history. So,
and things that are generally similar for one back then, when you get to really general stuff, are usually also go for males as well. So, like Oz was saying, anything that we find that's like differences, as I can guarantee, it's going to be culturally influenced.
Yes.
Almost 100%. So, anyway, now that we have that little bug out of the way.
So, my hosts, the thing I sort of wrote was like, in my experience and from my own perspective as a male audience, male audiences like a little more action, active situations, characters doing things and getting things done, plots that move from point to point rather than settling down to an extended scene of like emotional development. That's, I mean, I think that's a male expectation. For female audiences, I can only infer. I'm currently reading an audiobook series that is intended more towards a young adult teen female audience, Mortal Instruments. There's a lot of like hard, flat stomachs, strong, chiseled biceps mentioned, you know, or by bright green eyes, that kind of thing, like real descriptions of eyes and stuff like this. There's action, but the main focus is on character relationships and emotional reactions. Communication, you'd expect to focus mainly on an exchange of information, and a subtle, like, determining of power between two characters is more based on relative abilities of the two people. And, like, yeah, and based on the relative abilities is more... turns into an emotional contest of manipulation based on guilt and, you know, who is more righteous, that kind of thing. I am more righteous. No, I'm more righteous because of this and because of that. In that particular series, anyway. And that's an interesting sample, and it's probably not representative of what all female audiences want. It's just that particular book that is female focused. But... are there more similarities and differences? That's one thing I'm thinking, because say something like the Xena TV show was pretty much a power fantasy, exactly like Hercules before it. But, you know, that was obviously very female focused. It wasn't like a male gaze kind of thing that was, you know, for ladies, but it was power fantasy. When I listen to, say, the neo-noir detective series, V.I. Wachowski, starring Kathleen Turner. It's also like a movie, I think. I remember sort of, you know, going through that and thinking it was like a bit weird that every single male just happened to fall in love with her, and thinking, yeah, this is a bit of like, that's for the fans. But then I realized, hang on, in a male noir detective story, every female falls in love with the male protagonist, so there is no difference. That is exactly what... like the male you know, version of it is. So really there are no real differences between, you know, in those examples anyway. So anyway, that was my post.
Yeah. The movies and media and stuff like that, they kind of create the differences themselves. Not completely. They go off of things like simple things like males like this, females like that, all that kind of thing. And then they take it and pump it up to 10. 11, because they want to, at least at one point, they wanted to attract a certain audience. And then it was those movies and those media that then in turn kind of created that criteria that, okay, so this is what males like and this is what females like. So it kind of created itself in a sense for the most part.
Yeah. It does, but
I mean, it's based off of something, it's based off of other things that came before it that seemed to work. I'm speaking very vaguely because I'm speaking about general, mostly movies and stuff like that.
I mean, you are definitely right. Movies follow what other movies have done. It's self-perpetuating culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly true. Yeah. And all culture is like... regressive and always focusing on something that went before. You don't have anything new. Yeah, so that's a good point. But what are those things?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, we just talked about a lot of it in the Patreon videos for those of you who don't yet support us on Patreon and receive those nice, tasty videos, but
there was also some very, very tasty fan service in that video.
Yeah, it's true.
It was.
Putting that out there.
Very sexy back
I
there.
did a cigarette afterwards, and I don't even smoke. So
Oh, it's smoking hot.
smoking hot. But we also have lots of tasty posts to read, so I'm sure they could fill us in about what our audience thinks constitutes as gender divided media. And I'm going to make an asterisk
Nice
to this,
segue.
being the anthropology student that I was, so that my professors don't come after me. There is a difference between sex and gender, and I will be not really distinguishing between the two because this isn't really an academic forum, and everybody will just get really pissed off and just sick of my shit. So
Yeah, I mean, like tell us like the 6 different genders. We have to outline that so everyone knows beforehand, and have a glossary of terms as well.
Oh.
Let's not. Well, so Bravo is first, and I think he identifies as a cis white male. So, we'll make that clear.
I don't know about that. Or have you asked him? You are assuming.
I am.
Which is not the way to go. You couldn't assume.
Well, I'll
Bravo
wear
is
that for
Bravo
him.
until he tells us otherwise.
He's Bravo-sexual.
whatever he is, we all have fun with him, and we love him dearly.
Exactly. Our little
This
Willoughby.
got really awkward. I didn't do this. You guys did this.
Well, it's getting very sentimental now, so we're playing to our female audience. So, Baines, would you like to do your thing with Bravo?
Sure. And for something more literal for our male audience, so we'll say that Bravo does many comics on the Duck. He does, Belinda Brandon's or Belle's Best. The films of Belinda Brandon, which is he has these characters who are actors. So he's got these characters in B movies. So he's showing scenes from the movies and then
with boobs and
behind the scenes
butts.
and a lot of that kind of
a lot
stuff.
of alliteration, basically. Anything that starts with the letter B, he's there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think they're all B
He's there.
cups too. So
Yeah,
it
he's
takes
done
it
tons
all
of
the way.
comics. I think that's his. Yeah. So Bravo says, in addition to culture-based, I can't do this voice right now. It's too early.
Do any voice you want.
In addition to culture-based, there's a male author telling a female audience what they're supposed to do. Like the old Hollywood woman's movie, where the independent woman realizes there's something missing in her life and finds that it's home and family and a man. And there's always the good guy, steady type, and the bad guy, roguish type. That another woman's movie genre has the woman changing the rogue with true love.
Oh my God! Yes,
That's a good point. Yep.
Changed my love.
These plot lines still exist in romance novels and Lifetime movies, all geared for women and increasingly created by women. This storyline has also spread to Asia in Bollywood and shown up in Chinese and Japanese books and movies.
It's more Bravo.
That's very true, very much. That's I don't know if I want to say trend, but that's huge. That whole idea of the woman.
Do they actually want that? Oh, we're not talking about that. Well, we might later.
It's also like especially in Asian series, which of course nobody knows that I am voraciously consuming this last few years. But there are a few that are possible to watch. They are objectively unwatchable, at least I would say by a Western audience, because they are this category called slap and kiss. That's an actual category, like almost like a genre, where you have the woman being this quote-unquote empowered woman that gets saddled with this very abusive man that will beat her, and then they sort of love each other and also kiss her and then beat her again, and she will fall in love with him for that, for some reason. And yeah,
Jeez.
there is also that.
Do you guys find an appeal? Would you put 50 Shades of Grey in that category, kind of, or no? I haven't seen it or read it.
I haven't seen it or read it myself, so
I haven't seen it or read it either, so...
None of us have.
Okay, but
We
does
know
that
about
appeal?
it,
Like,
though.
on some level, does that appeal?
not to me, but
Yeah.
different strokes for different folks. Like I've heard people call it mommy porn before, and like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's definitely an argument for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a market for it, definitely. You know, people love
I
the
think-
that more forceful kind of relationship, or you know, bondage kind of stuff. People,
I still
Go
think
for
though that is not slap and kiss, because if I got it correctly from all the videos saying why it's trash on YouTube,
Mhm.
they say that she goes in the relationship of her own accord, like she actually wants to be there. Whatever her reasoning is, that she wants to be there. The other one that I was talking about, the woman is entangled with this person against her will,
okay.
and
Right.
she ends up loving this person. And
Okay, yeah. I see what you mean. There's a slight difference. Yeah, so culturally, there are definitely differences between what people go for. It's a really interesting example. But,
And I wonder too, in those cultures, if women enjoy that media or if men do. I would assume that it's mostly based for men, but I have that's through my own bias. I can't really say.
I would have assumed the other way around.
You think so?
Yeah, but again,
Yeah.
I don't know either. Yeah.
It could be.
I wouldn't be able to say either, but considering that they're supposed to be broadcast in the noon and early afternoon zone, I would say they are more for housewives,
Women.
to use the
Yeah.
non-PC term. So,
Oh yeah, like soap opera kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Well, soap operas, those are interesting if you think about it, because those are pretty much women based, you know.
Traditionally, yeah.
Yeah, traditionally. And those are full of all sorts of just off the wall drama and stuff, and
Melodrama.
some of it probably borders a little bit on the slap and kiss type of thing that you were talking about, you know, just to create drama. But yeah, that's like one extreme. Like when you look at the different extremes of media based towards men and women, aimed at men and women in the West, I'm speaking about now, because that's the only reference I have for in the West is you have soap operas at one end, and then you have like porn and like action movies at the other end. Stereotypically, right? So those are the things
The poles.
you don't expect.
They're the poles.
Oh yeah, yeah. The spectrum, and there's a lot of stuff in between that spectrum, but it's kind of interesting to think that, I don't know, both are very exploitive in one way or another.
That's an interesting poll too.
Would you guys all agree that soap operas would be pretty much near the end, at that end of the spectrum? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that, say, porn and extreme, like exploitative type action movies are at the one end, appealing to the animal that men are, like, so to speak. I know we're not talking about that. But then on the far other end, would it be soap operas, do you think? Or would it be...
Well, I'd say no. I'd say it's not clear that like porn is one in for males, because that's changing now. We have like a huge
it's
market
changed.
for female porn. And that's the
Absolutely.
thing.
I'm more speaking about the way that we view these things. I'm not saying that that there is no porn for females. That's totally not true.
No.
What I'm saying is the way that we
kind of polls.
Yeah.
That's a traditional difference between those things, and definitely. So,
Yeah.
so I mean,
I
soap operas appeal to gay men. There's a massive audience of that, but then again, that's not. Yeah, it's a different.
I didn't
market.
know that.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think that there is a very specific, not genre per se, like a soap opera or things like that. A very specific type of character that appeals to women a lot. Like women not expect, but they really like encountering this sort of character, especially when it comes to male characters, and that is the knight in shining armor. No matter what the iteration, it doesn't need to be, is charming. The guy that is going to go above and beyond for love, whatever that love is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that this sort of character very much appeals to women, and for a lot of quote-unquote chick flicks, you have these characters being the main protagonist, like the man that either begins as a ruffian and then falls in love and changes completely because they are transformed by the love they have for this woman. Highlight. Okay. Or the man that is already very, very much, let's say, a good character, valiant, has a lot of money, things, all of these things, but also then they go through this very heroic set of challenges for his lady, in a sense, like think Mr. Darcy without the first part of being an asshole, sorry, but the other part, when he has started to be more gentle and more poised properly and stuff, and that he does a lot of things, he does it in the background without expecting anything in return, just does it because the woman he loves the woman. This is very appealing to women. This is basically, I think, I would be willing to do research to prove this. This is women track in terms of entertainment.
Yeah, it's a good point. A book written by a woman for a female audience. Like Heathcliff is another good example of a character that is an absolute rogue. He's a horrible, horrible man, but
cat.
Ladies, terrible, terrible man cat. Yeah, but ladies fall for Heathcliff. He is a sex symbol and has always been a sex symbol, even though he's always an absolute bastard. Say Lancelot, he was like the original knight in shining armor. He was developed for, the female audiences. French female audiences loved him. He was not part of the Arthurian legends at all until he was added quite a bit later on when the stories was became popular in France, and he was very much a female love interest kind of character. So yeah, the original knight in shining armor. Great point, Tarns. Yeah, that was that's where the character first originated. So when people say, knight in shining armor, and it's like something imposed on females or given to them, that's like an external thing. It's not really. It's always been a sort of
the idealistic sort of lover.
Yeah.
It's
the prize.
That never exists in real life.
No, never. Farts roses and.
Well, it's a great story when looked at on that example, because it's like Guinevere has an affair with Lancelot. So it's like, take me away from my boring Arthur. Give me this gorgeous Lancelot in shining armor.
I'm sure I've talked about this on the QUACKCAST over the years, but I knew this girl who told me that this is what her and her friends talked about, but she was a particular kind of person. So in their social group, they used to say, like, every girl will have her Arthur and her Lancelot
really?
in her life. So the dude who wants her more than she wants him, and then the other way around. The Lancelot guy.
Oh wow!
I found that very interesting.
Love triangle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah.
Because if you take it, and this is the literature nut in me, because I used to be an insane Arthurian legend fan. Like I don't think there are many things that I haven't read about the Arthurian legend and everything else. Reason that we have this sort of rivalry between Arthur and Lancelot is because of different iterations of the same legend. And the original was that Lancelot had this thing for Guinevere and she loved him, but it was the knightly love in a sense, and that was considered problematic because it was before the advent of Christianity, where you had restrictions on how many men you should love as a woman. That remained afterward. So you have different iterations of that.
Well, yeah.
I think mostly women want either an Arthur or a Lancelot. They would be fine finding one because usually you find neither. So
No, but we're talking about literature, though. So in literature, a lot of times there's the two different
I give you
characters.
that. Absolutely. Yes.
That was the point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, next up we have used books.
There's more Bravo, actually. Bravo at a second post.
There's more Bravo.
Okay.
More Bravo, full Bravo.
Okay.
And he goes on to say, according to common interpretations, women prefer stories with more personal interactions, emotional action with language, as opposed to physical action with fists and explosions. There should be more emphasis on facial expression and gesture, as opposed to objectification of body parts. So, to walk the fine line between the two, have an involved, from the heart discussion by women in lingerie that ends with one hitting another. Of course, this buys into many stereotypes, is very simplistic, and exceptions abound. Audiences ain't that all simplistic. Audiences ain't that all simplistic, no matter how awful their tastes are. Okay, yeah.
Some things, I mean, he said women hitting each other in lingerie. But it's funny, some things that we think are total fiction, like the man fan service, man service, have surprising, reality to them. I remember, like, in anime, one of the tropes I absolutely hate, I don't know where I've talked about this before, but I absolutely hate this thing. There's always, when female characters get together, they're always comparing each other's like abilities based on breast size. And it's always, oh, your breasts aren't big enough. Oh, don't worry, they'll get bigger eventually. Oh my god, you've got huge breasts, and I feel like really inadequate compared to you with the big boobs. And that's always something like I hate seeing that, because it's just so stupid and it's so tropey, so cliche, so far away from reality.
Yeah.
I think that would really happen. But the weird thing is, I've seen this happen in reality more than a few times. So actually, girls do this.
You're not supposed to tell people about the conversations we have, Oz. You son of a bitch. I trusted you.
Code. Yeah, so sometimes
You're hiding in the women's bath closet, the things you learn. Right?
Spying through your camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, some things that you think are totally, just fan service and like totally unreal, sometimes are in a weird way. But I still hate it though, because it just seems like.
All right,
It
Tit
just
and
stops
Tans,
everything.
explain this. Back this
Did you just call me Tit and Tans?
No,
He did actually.
Tans.
Did. Yeah, tit and pants.
Oh my god.
Male gaze. Always. Jeez. Keep it in your pants, Baines.
All right, avoid the question.
Keep it in
They're
your
not going to
button
admit
pants.
they do talk like this.
Your tants pants. Oh god.
Don't help them
Okay,
avoid.
I have the conversation with
I'm not
Oz.
sure. You broke up a little bit, and I'm not sure if I should be thankful or worried or suspicious.
It's all right. I got it. I nipped it.
She nipped it in the nip. Oh God.
There you go, folks.
There's your
It will
fan
not be
service.
admitted. Yeah.
There's
Not
your-
saying. This is why women are hard to write for. They won't tell us nothing.
Oh, they're mysterious. Oh, geez, they're an
Exactly,
enigma.
yeah. They're an enigma. Wrapped in a towel. as
Wrapped
they
in
talk
bacon.
about their- with each other.
Oh yeah, wrapped in a
And
towel
this
that
guy-
just sits above the boobs, just magically always.
Those scenes do seem weird, yeah. But it's. I mean, people talk weirdly. Like they're like the way we talk in private. Anyone talks in private would seem weird in fiction. So, if that does really happen, and Oz, I believe you. That you've heard this
You should. Everyone should believe
Yeah,
it. Whatever stupid
believe
stuff
it.
I say.
But that doesn't make it weird. It just makes it very sort of it's not publicly admitted.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, I think it. I mean, I've seen those scenes too, and like sometimes I wonder, like, is it being self-aware? Like, is it like, oh, we're stopping and having this weird conversation that a man's watching, like you? Because usually, and I don't even mean like the audience. I usually mean like it when it happens. It usually happens in the anime in front of a male character who's watching, and then he gets the little teardrop. The little
teardrop.
sweat drop over his head. He's like, and it's like, is it being self-aware and
Nosebleed.
being like, this is what men? No, and it's not usually. Yeah, it just stops things kind of dead. So I don't think it's like, oh, this is what happens in closed doors.
No.
You don't know it. Like, no, it doesn't. I like sometimes it might, but it's like it's not. Like you don't understand it. Like when women compare breast sizes at like sleepovers and stuff like that, it's not like
That's a good point.
It's like they're like, what's yours look like? I mean, all nipples look like that, right? That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's
So-
not like sexual assault, which I think most of the anime borders on when they grab
Yeah.
you.
Usually,
More like working together
Yeah.
than being like that combative.
Am I outrageously malformed?
Yeah.
that's what it comes from.
Exactly. If women are gonna talk about each other's breasts, usually it's like to ask whether others have experience of having like one boob smaller than the other, or things like that.
Have you got as many hairs on your nipples as I've got on mine?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Like, it's really not very sexy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and usually in anime, when you see these characters going at it like that too, it's like they've got huge tits, and they're like, and as they're yelling at each other, they're both bending forward, so they're almost touching, and they're like,
Yeah.
Or they're just grabbing, which is a bit over the top. Well, Used Books has some things to say. Who wants to read Used Books, or will you guys force me to do it?
I can read used books
Go for it.
in the voice of Ozone Ocean reading used
Oh,
books.
please don't.
Oh,
Crikey! There we go. Thinking about genres that appeal to women versus men based on movie trailers, my brother's experiences working in a bookstore, my own friends' family interests, video games, etc. Historic drama, science fiction, and fast-paced action seem to be geared towards a male audience. The female audience seems to love horror, romance, mystery, true crime. Crime dramas alone attract a varied audience. I should add periods at the end of the audience. Australians don't use periods. The police procedural appeals more to men. Psychological thrillers to women. Men tend to be more interested in physical and absurd comedy. Men and women both like social comedy and wordplay. Extrapolating and finding the similarities in popular trends, it seems that men like the more concrete focus on action and dingoes and facts, physical descriptions, as Bravo mentioned, while women are generally more drawn to social dynamics, emotion, and character focus. That's part of my art coming out there. That's when you're trying to mimic the American voice. Granted, individuals are all unique and overlap and exceptions. My dad is crazy for rom-coms, but also sci-fi and action. I like most of what he does except the rom-coms and the actioniest action. I prefer adventure to action. The difference is primarily in cinematography, in my honest opinion. Writing specifically for an audience is a recipe for failure. Write a good story in a way you enjoy. Afterwards, you can experiment with how to advertise and to whom. I remember, shut up. I remember many years ago, the USA, where I'm from, a man channel, and Lifetime, so USA, the man channel, and Lifetime, a woman channel, were playing the 40-year-old virgin. The trailers, promos on the channels looked like they were for an entirely different movie.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
I like the accent too. It's very Ozone Ocean meets a New York waitress.
Yeah. What's your
You got
order,
the coffee,
hon?
hon?
How'd you like to eat? Oh God, I can't do it.
Would you like some Vegemite on that?
Oh jeez. Would you want some more coffee? That's interesting. Yeah.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
The same movie marketed totally different way. So, and you think it was two different movies just because of the way they're deliberately marketing it to the men and women. Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing like police procedurals are very I find like women have really been a big market for the whole forensic science, stuff like that. That's just been massively interesting to the female market, so much so that a lot of universities have had a massive uptake in criminology studies by women.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge market. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's a weird thing.
Also, that's the reverse of the sort of. I mean, Used Books isn't making this as a point. She's saying she's generalizing that the procedural type things would be thought to appeal more to men.
Yeah, it's just a surprising little fact. Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, just for anyone who missed it, like me.
All right. Well, so next up we have a Busty LaRue. I love that name. It's so burlesque. It's just fantastic. Like 1950s burlesque, really. She'd be wearing one of those pointy bras, Tance. But
Yes.
that's exactly it. So,
And she'd be saying, "Can I freshen your coffee, hon?" Or whatever happens at a burlesque show. I don't know.
burlesque show.
I assume it's something like that.
A bit late for coffee generally at a burlesque show.
I guess so. Yeah.
In the bottomless waitress version, exactly.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. I didn't catch half of that. Am I supposed to be reading this?
Sure.
Okay. So, Basti LaRue, with a awesome brassiere, of course, on, says, "This is a fascinating topic to explore overall. Something interesting to ask ourselves is, when we look at what quote-unquote men like and what quote-unquote women like, genre-wise, how much of our perception is based on actual study and comparison, and how much is based on what is simply marketed at each group? Think about it. What is marketed to girls as quote-unquote feminine from a young age, and what is marketed to boys as quote-unquote masculine from a young age? It seems to go deeper than mere preference. Societal cultural differences play a huge role. How does this affect their taste in genre as adults? Current evidence would suggest that it has a rather large effect. We also know individually people are far more complex than simple. Men like action movies and factual crime drama versus women like romances and family movies. societal perception of what a man should be, what a woman should be, definitely has a major impact on what genre is marketed to what gender. Like, I often do wonder if men and women buy certain books or watch certain movies, probably subconsciously do it because of the, well, I'm a man, woman, this is what I should like. As a personal example, I get marketed to as a woman with many things that I actually have no interest in. No interest in. No, sorry, my fault. No interest in. Many types of romances, rom-coms, New York Times top 10 novels, bleh. Even cleaning supplies and cosmetic products. Never my favorite type of RPG, video games, comics, cartoons, etc. All this to say that there's definitely a disconnect between what marketing companies push at us as expected per gender, and what individual people's tastes truly are. LOL.
Okay, so yes,
It is.
so she's talking to the the examples of what do we think men and women like. So that's a bit of a it's hard to work backwards with that. What things we were marketed to while we were children. What influenced what we're into now. I mean, obviously that does happen because we're impressionable and we grow and we learn from examples that are presented to us. This is how all living creatures learn, all sentient living creatures learn. But I don't know if that changes the fact that we are interested in these things. As a gender. We can't really say, we can't really look at ourselves from the outside and say, yeah, we're only interested in that because, such and such. All we can really do is say, look, this is what we do expect and this is what we are interested in. So yeah, it's tricky. Objectivity is really an artificial construct in a lot of ways. We can sort of emulate it and imagine it, but yeah. Although, sometimes things are marketed to us that we obviously have no interest in, and we can see that they're trying too hard. They think, because I'm a man, I'm obviously interested in cars and like football and fishing, and I have no bloody interested in those things at all. Does that mean I'm not a man?
Yes. I'm just kidding. I find that too. Like heavy duty action and those like really extreme versions of that. I'm not interested in that stuff really either.
Yeah.
It's got to be a little, some kind of character intrigue in there. It's got to be not so far on the one end of the spectrum.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not interested in Transformers movies at all, and that's meant to be a typically male-focused thing. So they've got, the transforming robots and the super action and the fire and explosions and the sexy Megan Fox, and I couldn't care less. And that's not because, I'm not masculine. It's just that those particular things are not my thing. So, yeah, she's definitely right in that kind of aspect that... But, yeah, from
and especially,
that example.
I don't know if you mentioned that already. Sorry about the breakup. But have you noticed? When she said about cosmetics, it can be more correct. There are these very female characterized sponges that are called loofahs. They look like little clouds of a sponge, for the bath. Now they're marketing these loofahs for men, and they are all black or grey.
They can remove the dirt tactically. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I've seen that kind of thing. Yeah, so you have like the fanny pack for the lady that might be purple or, blue or whatever. And then for men, it's like tactical, tactical storage thing, yeah, for ammo and easy access for your supplies and your outdoor gear, yeah, and it's painted and it's green or khaki or something like that, or black, and yeah, so definitely some marketing, yeah, based on culture, because obviously we're not genetically drawn to green for men. That's you could make that argument, but you would be absolutely wrong and a moron if you did, because the whole idea of green bags and stuff was introduced in the 1940s as a specific camouflage color for packs and stuff. Before that was khaki, and before that was white, or that was all male tactical packs were white before that.
I would generally say, probably someone is going to say it far better down the line as we read, but I think the gist of the matter is to create a good story, and both men and women will appreciate it, regardless of the genre and how male or female centered the genre is.
Yeah, we hear that.
That said,
Yeah,
there are some tendencies from which clearly the marketing has at least originated. And I'm seeing it sometimes in the way that even I create some of my stuff. And I have to say that a lot of people originally thought I was a man, judging from what I was writing, and especially the battle scenes that I was that I wrote for the art of whaling, that supposedly are brutal for a woman, I guess. But there is more focus in the inner workings of the characters than I have generally seen being done in similar stories when men are writing. I'm not saying that it is not being done, I'm just saying that there are slight, not very big differences on how much one focuses on a specific issue according to gender. And I'll say gender as a social structure, of course. Okay. These are very small nuances, not something that is a strict category or something that men won't understand or women won't. Like, there is no men are from Mars and women are from Venus sort of tribe. Okay. No.
Yeah.
There are some tendencies, let's say tendencies, that are very, 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 very nuanced and will not really affect enjoyment, I think, if the story is good.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Just, smaller things. They're not as big as we would think they are. Well,
Could you, sorry.
Oh, no, Bones.
Could you identify those? Sorry, we just both paused and then talked at the same time. Tans, what could you identify any of those things? Like, what would those things be that you noticed?
The analysis that I mentioned.
The nuances, yeah. Like, anything you could.
Well, for example, generally women tend to focus a lot on motivations and how characters are motivated to do certain things. I have noticed, if you read, for example, The Crystal Cave by Mary Stuart, or if you read, what's her name, Marie Selinko's stuff, she wrote a lot in the first person point of view, both of these ladies, and they tend to really go deep into how someone decides to do certain things and where it comes from and how the emotion works down that. And if you go, for example, to see how Victor Hugo describes the motivations, who he also goes very much and very deeply into them, but he goes much more behavioral in his nuance than the ladies do. I'm talking that
Okay.
care difference. Okay, they will both go into motivations. I chose these three people because they are all amazing authors. And their quality of text is stupendous. But they will both go into the motivations and justify them and get you to really identify with different characters and stuff. But Hugo will not really be a lot on how this transformation of emotion is happening. You infer it from how the people behave, whereas the ladies are going to tell you about it in a very specific and artistic manner. They will tell you about. They will walk you through it in a sense. I hope it makes sense as I'm saying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Gene Joke. So I've got a couple more to go here. Might be my turn to read because I've made all you guys do it. Oh, yeah, Baines, Tance. Everyone's had a go. So Gene Joke says, "Oi!" That's me being Baines, being Gene Joke. Oi, it's not something I like to think about, to be honest. I make what I want to make. If there's an audience, I don't care if it's male or female. I assume it as male. What I like, then maybe it's somewhat geared more to men by default. That said, as for what genders like to think, I think it's part of societal training and exposure. I know plenty of men whose tastes are more feminine than typically masculine, and I don't mean gay men, and similarly women who are more into action films and such. It's a shallow stuff for the most part. A shallow stuff. Deep down, a good story appeals to most people regardless of what junk they have. I mean, granted, but I just wanted to know what are the things that appeal to different people. I know it's like, it's cultural. That's how I framed the question as. And, I'm not really talking about what you should write for. That doesn't really matter to me. That, obviously good stories and whatever you write is going to appeal to someone. But, I mean, are there differences between male and female expectations? That's more what I wanted to know rather than, the fact that, good stories are good stories.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. We have Vero again next.
Yeah, they were just having sort of a side conversation, so we can skip down to Baron Oz.
Oh, Baron Oz.
Baron Oz.
He's from Australia.
Bearin. Not Barren. It's not Baron Oz. He's just bearing with Ozone Ocean. I don't know if his name is a reference to he hunts bears or if he's just trying to bear with you.
He's not barren, that's what we're saying.
Exactly.
He can still bear children. He's not going to fly around in like an aeroplane painted red with crosses on it. And,
He's not saying he won't either.
So who wants to read
And he
it?
says who's going to read this gentleman, I'm assuming, from his avatar, but I don't know.
You can read it, Baines.
All right. He quotes Gene Joke's post there. He's like, "Oi, what you trying to say?" "Oh, okay. You don't mean gay men." He goes, "I have this fondness for plot." What the hell accent am I doing? I have no idea. I don't know what that is. But anyway, "I have this fondness for plot. Silly, I know. when I should be happy with just the violence, gore, and impressive CGI that so many modern movies try to disguise its lack with. Just not butch enough, I guess. Having said that, I detest
Butch.
most rom-coms, but I'm girly enough to shed a tear a lot in good films. Maybe I need my testosterone levels checked. Maybe I need my testosterone levels checked. He wasn't asking a question. I do love a bit of good action within a movie. I have to keep my brain switched on for, like a good spy or thriller thing. I love SF, but it's the story that drives it, not the FX. Getting back to comics, I've always assumed my Butterfly Effect comic would appeal more to females, being centered around an intersex character who predominantly identifies as female, her bi sister, and lesbian girlfriend. The central main male character is the first person to carry the story, be the boyfriend, and is a surrogate me to relive my old surfing life. And there's no real violence to speak of. For me, the big X-rater, not sex. I have no real basis or proof for this, though, especially with a dearth of comments over its run to gauge any male or female balance.
Okay.
Actually, that is an interesting question. When we were all making our comics, what kind of audience did we expect to go in? It's a very nice side question.
For me, I thought about it later, but really, and I later read this sort of these insights that said you should write for yourself first. That's what I did. I wrote what appealed to me and what I wanted to see, and as I develop other stuff, I'm doing the same thing. I'm the perfect audience for what I write, and that's the way I try to think, and not try to
Absolutely.
because I don't think it would work as well, if you try to be something else or appeal on purpose to something else. So that was it initially. After I started doing the comic, or even just before, I was like wondering if women would like it, because since I'm a guy, I'm wondering, what is there stuff in here that appeals to me as a guy that I should keep to myself? Are the female characters going to be either offensive or just off-putting to females? I just had those concerns, and I mean, from what I've seen, not at all. The characters I was worried about, women seem to love them, and guys love them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's from a super small sample size of people who comment. That's all I can go by. It's just not very many people. But
you can't second guess your audience. That's an important thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I went what appeals to me. I probably did censor myself a little bit, but not much. And then as the comic goes on, you don't at all, I find. You just do whatever you want. It's just So yeah.
As an aside, I think it always leads to being offensive when you second guess. That's when the offense crawls in. It's I'm going to make this character because I want to appeal to a black audience. So I'm going to have this black character. I'm going to have them talking like someone from the hood, and they're going to, have all the dialect, and it's just embarrassing and offensive.
Yeah, well.
But if they just, drew one of their friends that they knew, then it can turn out fine. But if you're trying to, and okay, I'm going to do a woman that is a woman, and she's going to be, doing woman things and constantly talking about her period and stuff like that, then it's
oh my God!
It's no, that's not how women are at all.
Yeah.
That's offensive. But if it's just a normal human being, then if you're second guessing and you're trying to aim something in some way, then it turns out wrong. That's my pet theory, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you just be natural, then you'll be fine. Just do what you enjoy. For me, for Pinky TA, when I was doing that, I wasn't thinking about what would appeal to men or women or whatever. Again, just like you, that was for me, what I enjoyed, and I didn't care what, whether this would be offensive to that group or whatever, or would this appeal to this group or that group. should I have to put in fan service for this and I have to do that. It was just like, yeah, I want to see this. I want to see lots of butts, more butts, helicopters. I want to see a battleship. That's my thing. Yeah. So, that's
When I was
go, Tom.
when I was making it, when I was making Without Moonlight, I have to say, I was basically on half a rank in a sense. I started off as a reaction to things that were happening at the time politically and stuff. So I wanted to make something to counterbalance the stuff that was being said about Greeks and modern Greek history, basically. So, I made it for me. But I also have to say that it was in a bit of an I'll show you sort of moment. But I wasn't thinking of a specific audience. I was doing it just because I felt that there was nothing out there that would give this counterbalance that I was looking for. So I made it, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning. But as I continued, it became more of a personal project. Like right now, I'm making it for me and to do the things that I want to do and say the things that I want to say for myself. And I have no idea what audience I'm doing. I think mostly history buffs. I'm drawing in history buffs mostly. I think. And 50-50 men and women.
Well, it's a dramatic World War II story, and that's a popular subject. So yeah, it has mass culture appeal as well as being niche history. But yeah, it's not particularly a male or female focused thing. You can see that from when you read it. It's not, you're not reading it and thinking, oh yeah, this is a total chick thing, not at all. You're not reading it and thinking, so many explosions and violence, I can't take it, the testosterone, oh my god. It's just a good story.
Yeah.
Well, last up...
Oh,
go
yeah.
on, Ben, sorry.
I was just going to ask you guys, but we can read El Cid's comment or the last comments first. I think there's a couple more.
Well, mainly El Cid. I think the others are just sort of...
Okay, just a little back and forths with.
mainly talking about the topic of.
Talked about Farscape.
We go to El Cid now.
Yeah.
Immediately.
But yeah, Baines wanted to mention something.
I was just going to ask you, has there ever been anything you did watch and you said, this is too much testosterone for me. This is not for me because of that, or it's just not enough for me, or something. Well, I had an experience the other way around. So I thought I'd ask you first, though.
Well, for me, say anime, there's been a few anime they're obviously really female focused, and it's just too female focused. So it's not like Yuri on Ice. That's a thing that Pitt mentioned, and watching that, it's just so like Yuri, I think they call it. So it's it's all men, and they're very feminine, and they're ice skating and oh my god, he's really attractive. Oh, he's such a good skater. And I just tried to watch it, and I tried to sort of suspend my, whatever. But
expectations?
I just couldn't, and it was just too obviously focused on getting the female libido kind of stuff. That was what it was for, and it wasn't for me. And I thought, no, it's not appealing to me at all.
Hearing that short description was too much for me. So.
Oh my god, I'm trying to think of something that was so bombastically testosterone filled that I didn't watch. I can't think of something. One thing that does come to mind, I watched it because it was hilarious, although I didn't feel connected, I guess, was Escape from LA.
Okay, yeah.
Kurt Russell, yeah.
Snake Plissken. That was another movie. it was like, just look at my gigantic guns and all my growling and all the super macho dialogue. The dialogue was the one that sold it really as a super man's movie. It's a man's man.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say I couldn't watch it though. I felt that it really wasn't for me. It was amazing.
Yeah, you get
I
that impression,
would
don't
still
you?
watch it today. What?
You
What
do
did
get
you
that
say?
impression when you watch something, you think, this isn't for me. This is for
Yes.
someone else. Yeah, I'm a spectator, an outsider. I'm not the intended
I
audience.
could like see a little soldier boy sort of thing getting really pumped with this.
Sure.
Something. Yeah. Oh my god, I have to watch that movie again now. Because
I don't remember it at all, hardly. Yeah, I'm gonna see. I have to watch it again. Too.
It's
I
a
know
more-
it's Escape from New York, but like dialed up to 11, kind of.
Well, it's more commercial, more modern version of Escape from New York. New York's more
Right. Yeah.
gritty and
maybe it was Escape from Somewhere.
okay.
Where
It was
it?
probably L.A. I think L.A. was the more bombastic.
Yeah, they had these collars that exploded the head. I think that's in LA.
I think
Okay.
maybe both of them did that. It's just that.
Not sure.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the New
Because
York
awesome.
one starts out with like an aeroplane crashes in New York, and there's like a diplomatic guy with his suitcase.
The president.
Yes.
Yeah.
President with some suitcase, and it gets cut off his hand or something. And has to get rescued.
No, I don't
Got the
remember that.
nuclear codes in it or
Probably
something.
And there's
it was
lots
a
lots of punks and things because that was really popular in the early 80s, late
Yeah.
70s. Punks are dangerous with spiky
But
hair.
the
Oh my
question-
god.
The question though is, have you ever seen, as a man, a masculine movie that was too masculine for you?
Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
first I'll go. Yeah.
Triple X with Vin Diesel.
Oh my god, that was also amazing.
Yeah, that was just. Yeah, I thought, this is just wank. It's just pure wank. So yeah, definitely that one, and maybe the later James Bond films. They're a bit like that as well. It's just too testosterone, like super fast balletic movements and bang bang shoot. Yeah, it's just whatever. Not for me.
Yeah, I would say like a lot of things just don't appeal. They're too fast. They're too loud. I don't know if it's a thing of being too masculine or whatever, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't appeal to me on that level. Not really a big fan of action movies usually. There are some I love, but yeah, there have definitely been some.
I'll say Predator is a very hyper masculine film, but it's still appealing. It still works for some reason. I mean, it's over the
that one's
top.
great. Yeah.
It really is over the top. You know, like muscle guys gritting each other with a bloody hard handshake and an arm wrestle. For goodness sake. You know?
Yeah.
It's
If it was done without a wink, like that movie is funny. It does all that stuff, but it's subtly funny, and it's almost like that's awesome. That's a great movie.
A chick flick that I couldn't watch, I actually fast forward the half of the movie, get to the end. I couldn't watch it. It was too early for me. Was The Princess Diaries.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was like a never-ending Barbie commercial. I couldn't stand it.
I think you mentioned also with the ABBA one as well. What was it? You mentioned you really hate that one.
Oh, which one? I have a few.
They have the ABBA music all through. It was with
Oh, Mamma Mia! Oh my God!
Mamma Mia. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Greek wedding.
The reason I hate this, the reason I hate Mamma Mia, isn't because it is too girly. I think I wouldn't say that. It's because it is too silly. It's too silly. It feels like a very haphazardly put together fan fiction, more than it being too girly. Princess Diaries, like, the glitter just assaulted me from the screen.
Oh, right.
It was like an onslaught, like a blizzard of glitter and tulle, and I don't know, and unicorn, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like even now that I'm thinking about this, I was very sad for Julie Andrews for doing that movie.
Yeah.
I would say
I didn't watch it. There's a lot of stuff I wouldn't even bother with because of that reason. Just doesn't, like, I can tell it's
Yeah.
not for me. I can point to one though that I thought was a really good show. It is a good show. It's funny, and I was into it. But I was binge watching it on Netflix. I'd watch a couple episodes at night, and I had to stop. It was The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh,
I think
right.
really funny, great idea. A girl is released from a bunker where she was held prisoner since she was 12. So she comes out of this bunker and like tries to start her life, and not have anyone in her new life find out where she grew up or whatever. A woman from one of the side characters on The Office was in it. She's really Ellie Kemper, I think her name is. Really
Yeah.
funny. And the show was created by Tina Fey. It was really funny. And a really, really funny show. It really made me laugh sometimes. But I was started at a certain point a few weeks in, I was like, show is taking the testosterone out of my body. There's not a drop in this show. This is so like womanly. I only noticed because I was watching it so much, I think. And I started to feel weird, so I had to stop. But
God.
I point to that again because it's a really good show. You know, it's just
Okay.
very
Oh, that's
something not
interesting.
male about it. Like,
Well, oh God. Well, I'll mention like Bridget Jones' Diary. That's
oh my God, that's awful as well.
those films. But then again, they're just really the female version of like male, like fantasy kind of movies done the
Another
same
one
way.
that is terrible as well because it's a fantasy exploitation. You said it very well. That they take a fantasy that a big part of the female population has, and they distort the shit out of it.
Hmm.
And that another one is like Never Been Kissed. Oh my God, I hated that movie. Oh,
okay.
it was. I would die of estrogen poisoning.
Overdose. Yeah.
Oh my no.
Say Bridget Jones, though, from my perspective, I don't think it was a bad film. It just wasn't so much for me.
It was bad.
But I know people genuinely like it. Things like Sex and the City, I could never really get into.
That also is. But I think that is consumerism. Like this is going to shove consumerism down your throat, like they are making foie gras out of you. So
yeah, and it could be. That
go.
could be more a regional thing as well. I mean, that's more aimed at Americans who are aspiring to a certain class, because obviously these would be upper middle class women, successful women in New York. So people are watching that with an aspirational kind of sense, more than a gender. Just more than strictly a gender thing. So it's more, regional and class based. So there's a lot of dynamic happening in that kind of stuff. Even Bridget Jones' Diary, I mean, she's a woman. She's a woman. She's a woman who can afford to go, all over the world and have these wealthy boyfriends and, so it's just a fantasy, class based thing and whatever. Should we read El Cid?
Yeah, man.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, we're leaving El Cid on the side of the road here. El Cid, of course, many comics on the Duck. Been here for a very long time. Trans-Neptunian is his comic right now. And who's reading it? Oz
Oh, me?
or me?
Oh, I don't
Or
mind.
kids.
I'll do it as a South African. If
Ah.
that's okay with you. If I can remember how to do my South African. I think there's a lot of overlap between the men and the women. They enjoy a lot of the same things, but they get different things out of it. Like when a man watches Maximus, the gladiator, defy death in the arena, he's probably identifying with Maximus and imagining himself performing these heroic feats of combat. But when a woman watches the same thing, she's more likely to appreciate it as a spectator and feel sympathetic concern for Maximus's plight. Appreciate it, for a sympathetic concern for the conflict, because their verbal and interpersonal skills tend to be more developed than men's. So they'll get more out of it, for instance, a love interest aspect to a story than most men. However, men tend to be more objective driven, and so love interest is a motivation they can appreciate and follow. So men and women mostly enjoy the same things, just in different ways, for different reasons. If your story tracks interpersonal dimensions, you'll likely lose your female audience first, because they're less engaged by it, and eventually your male audience will notice as well. On the other hand, if your story is mostly drama without a clear focus, male readers will likely be the first to grumble about it. And your female audience will also get frustrated if the imbalance becomes too pronounced. So there you go.
Nice accent. And that makes sense, yeah. That's a good post, yeah.
My South African is starting to work a bit better.
Diplomatic.
What was that?
Diplomatic. It was too staccato for me.
Too staccato for you. You couldn't take it. Oh, I love the South African accent. It's so fantastic.
That's nice. Nice job.
It's easier than a New Zealand accent. That's just too close to Australian. It's too hard. I can do a good Canadian sometimes. But yeah,
Let's hear it.
Oh, my Canadian, I probably couldn't do it now. It's something I have to work up to. And anyway, I worked out that you can't really do a Canadian accent, in that Canada is a gigantic country with all different accents. True. So you think you're doing a Canadian accent, but really you're just doing a regional accent from, I don't know, Nova Scotia or something.
A small town in Quebec. It's a town of 300 people. It's like, oh yeah, that accent's from.
Yeah. Oh, what was my Canadian? All right, we'll save this for after the QUACKCAST. So yeah,
okay.
What else is take, like, men and women take different things from the characters. So that's interesting. Is it true? In some respects, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that.
I think he does have at least a point. Women, I think, will tend to focus a lot on the dialogue and on the nuances of interactions between characters a little bit more than men. So yeah, I think so. Okay. There is some the nuance thing that I was saying earlier. Yeah. If you see, like, Game of Thrones and all the kerfuffle around this whole thing and how it ended and everything, you will see that both men and women tended to have the same gripes. if they were dissatisfied with the ending, in the sense that, how did you do this? That it doesn't. The motivations aren't there, or if they are there, they're underdeveloped. Like, they all focused on the problematic elements of the narrative skill
Right.
that had to go into it. So I think that there are these nuances, there are these differences, like differences between male and female audiences and what men and women take out of a story. But after a cut-off point, I think they will follow and focus on the same things, and they will not like and be dissatisfied in the same way. So yeah,
Right.
there's that.
There's that. So it all balances out in the end. Well, that's a great way to end the QUACKCAST. So, goodbye, people. Thank you very much for listening to our slightly over time QUACKCAST. We've got a lot into this one. It was good.
Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. Packed full of
Cool.
stuff. We patted our bra this time. So we could all appeal to our male
And our
audience.
trunks.
And our trunks. Patted our bras and trunks. All right. Bye-bye, people.
Bye-bye.
Bye.